For those of you who don't know, this is our 16th season, and this is about bringing community together. You know, we all enjoy getting together. I appreciate y'all making the effort and dealing with a new location downtown. I want to thank everybody for making that work. Gary, would you come up and lead us in a word of prayer? I want you also to make mention just to pray for those here in the audience, just to pray for humility for some of the folks in here. I'll explain why later. Gary Underwood, everybody.
I thought I was humble. Guys, I'm looking forward to Saturday, and I'll tell you why. It'll be the first time this season that we have a night game in Fayetteville, because I have Saturday morning kids football every week. So it's going to be nice to actually get to go to a game. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the day, the opportunity we have to get together. Thank you for the food and use it to give us strength. Lord, we just want to thank you today for every good blessing that you give us, the way you lead us, the way you provide for us and direct us. In your name we pray. Amen.
All right, I want to remind everybody, just if you've got somebody that wants to hear or see Dan, they can do that a couple of ways. You can watch online at lrtouchdown.com or our Facebook page. You can listen to Dan on the bus, who I know I just spent a few minutes there with Justin. Main thing, mute your phones if you can at this point once you text somebody to let them know that. I do want to thank all of you who have joined, our 50-yard line members. Thank you so much. Our regular first down members. We couldn't do it without those memberships, y'all. They're that important. We got to have our sponsors, who I'll mention in a minute, but we couldn't do it without everybody joining. It makes a big difference. It really does. I think we're around 400 plus already, the membership. So, boy, did you guys enjoy. Bobby did a great job. Do you agree? Be humble. If you're the winner, if you win $10,000, I want a contribution to the Touchdown Club. I see somebody back in the back. Raise your hand if you got a ticket. There you go. You don't have to scratch it off now. Don't have to. Remember, Touchdown Club gets 10%. Touchdown Club gets 10%. Some of you are struggling to get underneath your chair. Don't hurt yourself. Don't hurt yourself. All right, let me have your attention. That's okay. You want to thank the folks over at CJRW for helping that. So 50 people. Brian, listen, if they had your luck, you probably won one, didn't you? No, you didn't get it. So I want to thank the folks. How many of us have got free folks from the lottery, have free stuff from the lottery out there, shirts and hats? Yeah, listen. Dan is bringing it. Dan's magic with the Arkansas Scholarship Lottery is bringing it today. So thank you to Dan. I do want to thank everybody here at the Doubletree. Jeff McClure, who's back in the back, I see. Brent Bailey, Beth Clark for making this transition for us from West Little Rock to downtown successful. Do want to thank our sponsors real quick, Twin City. This is be for Saturday night's game against San Jose State. Ed Buffington. Ed, raise your hand. Where are you at? Eddie, great. Give it up for Eddie Buffington. Yeah, you're going to watch in the Crane Automotive Suite. Thank you to Larry and all the guys. Great to see the guys from Crane Automotive here today, as always, back to back. Arkansas Democrat Gazette, Wally Hall and Amanda Copley. We'll have all Arkansas Preps Player of the Week today. Wally wrote 2 great articles, I thought, on Coach Petrino's meeting last week. Thank you. Mike here and his wife Dan, if you don't mind. Great to have Matt Johnson back handling our AV work. Matt, thanks. Great to have you back from California. Dwayne Duncan. Now, I understand, where's Dwayne? Now, Dwayne Duncan said either one of you two, you sat beside each other taking the SAT in the 70s, and one of you helped the other one get into college. Now, he wouldn't say, he was looking at yours, okay. All right, that was a small world there, Dwayne Duncan. Thanks for doing our photography, Dwayne. RJ Hawk is out of state today, so it's great to have Meredith Scott Hell with her little bump, little Jimmy in her stomach there. She can still do social media. Thank you to Meredith Scott Hale, who works at CareLink but volunteers for social media for us. Grant Garrett, former Razorback, Garrett Excavation. Thank you, Grant, for your participation with the club. And the most amazing check-in ladies sit at that desk, I mean, like clockwork. You guys have seen it. And then the guys who come in here, our three musketeers who set up everything on the table. So let's give it up for Debbie Wyman and all our great volunteers here who do such a good job. It's time for our All Arkansas Preps Player of the Week. At this time, Buddy. I love wearing them, and ladies, thank you. It looks great. Very proud to see you wearing them. Got one more week to order those, and we'll get those embroidered. Just Sound Club logo, not your name.
And 3 touchdowns. It was the first 300-yard passing performance for an Arkansas quarterback in 2 years, so it had been a while. Rakeem Boyd, yeah, let's hear it for Nick Starkle. Rakeem Boyd rushed for a career-high 122 yards, and Arkansas had 520 yards of offense. That sounds nice. That's worth getting in the left lane finally for, and was 6 of 12 on third down. So Finally got out of the medium, got out of the mud, bit in the mud, and back in the left lane now. So good to hear. And that was the most points, by the way, against an FBS opponent by an Arkansas team in 3 years. So good performance all around, down the stretch at least. Meanwhile, as you know, the fans at Sanford Stadium in Athens were decked out in pink in honor of the late Wendy Anderson as Georgia posted a 55-0 victory over ASU It was 34-0 at halftime. Red Wolves had just 81 yards of offense, just 7 of those rushing in the first half. In fact, it was 27-0 before the Red Wolves even crossed midfield. So the game wasn't much, but I tell you, that show by the Georgia fans is receiving nationwide attention, not just on sports outlets. It was on the Today Show on NBC this morning. I saw that. So hats off to Georgia. What a class act, and I know we're looking forward to getting we're looking forward to having Coach Anderson here later this year, and I know what kind of reception he'll get for this club. All right, let's look elsewhere around the SEC. Now, it's still that early September period when a lot of the SEC teams are still picking on chitlins, so we'll run through those real fast. You don't hear that term a lot in Chicago, do you, Dan? Picking on chitlins? Maybe down on the south side along Cicero Avenue, a lot of southern roots down there. But that's what's happening. There was a conference game, of course, in South Carolina. Alabama goes to 3-0 overall, 1-0 in the conference, 47-23 at South Carolina, which falls to 1-2 and 0-1. Tua Tagovailoa threw for a career-best 444 yards and 5 touchdowns against South Carolina. LSU's 3-0, 65-14 over 0-3 Northwestern State out of Natchitoches, Louisiana. Joe Burrow was 21 of 24 passing, 373 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, I want you to get this for Burrow so far this season. He is 75 of 90 for 1,122 yards after just 3 games. Quite impressive. Auburn also 3-0, 55-16 victory over Kent State. The Tigers did it on the ground mainly. They had 467 rushing yards, and they had 3 100-yard-plus rushers in that game. Texas A&M moves to 2-1, 62-3 victory over Lamar. Kellen Mond throws for 317 yards for the Aggies. Florida 3-0 overall, 1-0 in the conference following a 29-21 victory over Kentucky and Lexington. UK falls to 2-1 overall, 0-1 in conference, but it was an expensive victory for the Gators. They lost quarterback Felipe Franks to injury in that game. Kansas State goes to Stark Vegas and goes to 3-0, beating Mississippi State 31-24. That was the first Power 5 non-conference victory on the road for Kansas State since 2011. We got Coach Snyder coming in later this year. Mississippi State falls to 2-1. And Tennessee, there would have been a riot if this game were close. It was bad over there. They get their first victory in 3 tries, beating UT Chattanooga 45-0, and they didn't mess around. Volunteers led 21-0 after just 6.5 minutes of that game. Ole Miss goes to 2-1, but they struggled. 40-29 over Southeastern Louisiana. Matt Corral, 21 of 30, 239 yards and 2 TDs. And Missouri, which lost that opener at Wyoming, is now 2-1, shutting out Southeast Missouri State 50-0. Kelly Bryant, the transfer from Clemson, 15 of 20 passing, 225 yards and a TD. Now, let's hear it for those UCA Bears off to a 3-0 start following a 31-30 win. That was their Southern Conference opener against Abilene Christian in Conway. UCA went ahead with just 1:30 left in the game on a 3-yard touchdown run by senior Carlos Blackman. Abilene Christian then missed a 46-yard field goal attempt with only 30 seconds left in the game. What a finish in Conway. And how about UAPB? Back-to-back victories for the Golden Lions. They're 2-1. 53-15 over Langston in Pine Bluff. This is the first time UAPB has won back-to-back games since 2014. So it has been 5 years since I could say that, so good for them. Ouachita, ranked number 6 nationally in the nation and in Division II, goes to 2-0, 42-13 over Arkansas Tech. Tech falls to 0-2. Braden Brazil, Ouachita's sophomore quarterback, 12 of 15 passing, 227 yards and 3 TDs. David said remain humble, but I will mention that is now 18 consecutive conference victories for Ouachita, 18 straight. Harding, 1-1, following a 24-0 shutout of 1-1 UAM. All of the points in that game were scored in the first half. And Henderson is 2-0, following a 34-6 win over 0-2 Southern Nazarene. Richard Stametti is their quarterback. He was 34 of 44 passing, 396 yards and 3 TDs. And Southern Arkansas University, the Mule Riders, also 2-0. Sophomore Austin Wilkerson hits a 48-yard field goal on the final play of the game for a 30-28 victory over Gary's alma mater, Oklahoma Baptist, which falls to 0-2. Fortunately, the Baptists in Arkansas play better football than the Baptists in Oklahoma. But all right, for Hendricks, our only Division III team, another one came down to the end. Sandy Burks hits a 31-yard field goal on the final play of the game to give the Warriors a 26-23 victory at Texas Lutheran in Seguin. They go to 2-0. So, yeah, let's hear it for Hendricks. David, name a famous Texas Lutheran graduate. Broadcaster. SEC. Retired. Vern Lundquist. Yeah, Vern Lundquist went to Texas Lutheran. That's after I basically gave it away to you, but all right. I was his lifeline on that one, shall we say. All right, this week in the SEC, you've got Southern Mississippi at Alabama, LSU at Vanderbilt, Auburn off to a 3-0 start. They've got to play the Aggies in College Station. Raise your hand if you like Auburn to win that one on the road. How many like Texas A&M? Majority with the Aggies, it looks like. Kentucky is at Mississippi State. Cal is at Ole Miss. All right, Notre Dame at Georgia, primetime CBS game. How many of you like Notre Dame to go in and win between the hedges at Sanford Stadium? How many of you like the Georgia Bulldogs? I do too. We'll see. Tennessee at Florida, South Carolina at Missouri, and of course San Jose State at Arkansas. Here in the state, in addition to the game in Fayetteville, we have Southern Illinois at Arkansas State, Northwestern Oklahoma at Ouachita, Harding at Southern Arkansas, Arkansas Tech at Henderson, Southwestern Oklahoma at UAM. That's a lot of choices. You know what that means, David. Games in Fayetteville, Jonesboro, 2 in Arkadelphia, Magnolia, and Monticello. You have no excuse. Get out and see a college football game on Saturday. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Rex. A couple things real quick before we bring up Dan. For those of you who are wondering about photos, so what we've done the last couple of few years, we do hard copy photos of all of pictures on stage. Well, we got to where a lot of people weren't picking those up, so now we're just posting those on Facebook. So, and they should be high resolution enough. You know, most people are not printing them out, but if you wanted something printed out, we can make sure and give you a high resolution. So every picture that's taken today or the past, they're online right now. Dwayne posted them on Facebook, so I just want to announce that. A couple special guests. Good to see Kanan Sandy back with us, and Ginger Sandy. Kanan, great to have you. Give it up for Kanan. Kanan's everywhere. He's everywhere. Every recruit the Razorbacks has signed, somehow you're watching them play Friday night. I don't know how you do it. But it's great to have both Kanan and Ginger back. Sandy O'Connor. Sandy, great to have you. I know you're buddies with Dan. Great to see you. One of the great radio voices here in this market. Matt Hampton. Where's Matt at? I know the brother of Dan. Great to have you here, Matt. Let's see who else here I wanted to mention. Two other folks. One is Jimmy Walker, one of the great defensive linemen, Dan Hampton's teammate. Jimmy, stand up, Jimmy. Jimmy Walker, everybody. One of the great defensive linemen of all time right there. What a team. What a defense. If Hampton wasn't enough, you had Jimmy or vice versa. So great to have Jimmy here today. Also, I want to mention, you may have saw my Facebook post, for those who do social media, our good friend Bruce James, All-America from 1969, lost a very important ring to him. It was a ring that was given to him in 1972 by his wife, specially designed. It says All-American Arkansas on the top in the shape of a football with a diamond in the middle, and on the side it says Southwest Conference on one side, 1970 on the other, and then it also has on the inside his name. Well, he lost that somewhere in West Little Rock, lost or it was stolen or something. It's gone. And he thinks he lost it somewhere on the Bowman Chenal. So he is offered today, this weekend, he is offering $10,000 That's how much it means to him. It's so sentimental to him, and it's killing him that he doesn't have it. So we're going to try to sketch the photo of the ring, or sketch the ring, how it looked, and then put those on flyers. So if you want to go out and do some investigative work in West Little Rock and find that ring for Bruce, Bruce will be glad to cut you that check. But Bruce, we're thinking about you. We know how much that means to you because Barbie designed that. I know that's really tough for you to see. Before we bring up Dan, I want to do a couple things. Jay Amber, where's Jay at? Where's Jay at? Where are you at? There you are, Jay. Jay Amber called me a few weeks ago. Jay's a good buddy of Dan. He said, hey, man, I want to bring something to you. I want to see if you can do something with this. He said, there was something I found in I think it was Dan's mother's house. Is that right, Jay? It found this in the garage. It was sort of bad condition, didn't look good, and said, because you do trophies, Bass, can you do something with it? Well, not many people know, but Dan Hampton in 1979 was a rookie. And they created in 1970 an award called the Brian Piccolo Award that went to the top rookie on the Chicago Bears. And you won it your rookie year. And back now they're doing it where they give it to both a veteran and a rookie. But back, the first 15, 20 years of doing that, they did just a rookie. So you were the 10th recipient of that. Matt, I think we have a picture. This is what the actual trophy looks like of the Brian Piccolo Award, if you could find that. There it is right there. Now, needless to say, it does not look like that now. Dan, I don't know what you were doing with it, but somehow there's a golfer that's been replaced in the middle there and a few other things. So I don't know if you were having a party one night and decided to just start mixing different trophies together. But it's in a dilapidated state. But I want to tell you, Dan, I've got Jill over at Discount Trophies. We're looking all over the country. A lot of those pieces are broken and they're shattered. And we're going to, you may have done it, yes. But we're going to put together that trophy back as good a condition as we can. And on behalf of the touchdown, I'm going to present that to Dan Hampton. So just want to give a round of applause, Jay. Thank you for the heads up on that. Anybody who's seen Brian's song, remember obviously how meaningful that was for you to win that. So that's I thought that's great. And listen, she's looking on eBay, and it's not easy to find because some of those pieces are no longer in existence. So one other thing too, as you know, I guess it was 7 years ago, Dan, that we created the Dan Hampton Award, and it was something that I did it because we need to honor guys like Dan and his legacy. He was picked in the 4th round, number 1 first-round draft choice, the 4th overall pick in the NFL. Went on to be, last year we had Mean Joe Green. I would hasten to say the 2 most fiercest defensive linemen to ever play this game, in my lifetime at least, are Dan Hampton and Mean Joe Green. And so one of my deals is that it was a way for us to continue to carry on the legacy of Dan Hampton and also recognize both the top high school defensive linemen in the state and the top collegiate defensive linemen in the state. Didn't matter what school you're from. Could be Arkansas, could be Harding, could be UCA. And we've honored a bunch of them, Dan. Arkansas State last year. But I want to show a picture of who won it the first 2 years at the collegiate level. And you guys may recognize him because he's won Super Bowl rings. So that's Trey Flowers. So on the right rather, is the plaque we used to give before Mike decided to pay for the trophy. So once we got so his first 2 years of winning, he didn't have a trophy. So we sent that to him, Dan. And I'll never forget what Dan Hampton said when I sent him video. I sent him video of every person who's up for the award, high school and college. So Dan gets on the computer and looks through 5 to 6 to 8 high school players and college players, and he picks his winner. And I'll never forget what he said about Trey Flowers. He said, David, oh my gosh, this guy, I'm so impressed with him. And I was thinking, okay, Dan, okay. And he goes, well, he's wearing my old number too. And I thought, okay, maybe that's it. He says, no, the way he, what was the word I can't remember what you said, Dan, but the way he hits at the line of scrimmage. He said he reminds me of the way I used to play. So I sort of thought, wow, and little did we know, he turned out to be an unbelievable player for the Razorbacks and obviously good enough for the Patriots to draft him and end up winning 2 Super Bowl rings. So it showed me the knowledge that Dan Hampton had. Also, too, just so you guys know how much time and effort he puts into the award. It's not just something he rubber stamps. He looks at it. So I did just want to share that with you. We're going to let Dan get up here and speak. Sometimes we do Q&A, and Dan just wants to get up here and talk a little bit. If we have time at the end, I'll do some Q&A with him. Without further ado, let's get an official welcome and intro of the great Dan Hampton.
Big Dan has his legendary high school coach, Bill Reed, to thank for launching his Hall of Fame career. Coach Reed pulled Dan, a 6'6" saxophone player, out of the band. 2 years later, Dan was a hot college prospect. He was a force on the defensive line for his 4 years as a Hog. Dan was the Southwest Conference Defensive Player of the Year in 1978, a two-time All-Southwest Conference selection. Dan had 237 tackles as a Hog, including 32 tackles for loss.
At the heart of the Bears' defense is Dan Hampton, a young veteran who is one of the NFL's most dominating defenders.
The fourth pick of the 1979 NFL Draft, his fierce style of play earned Dan the nickname the Danimal. His Hall of Fame credentials: four-time Pro Bowl selection, four-time first-team All-Pro, NFL Defensive Player of the Year, and he paid the price with 10 knee surgeries. In 1990, the Danimal received the George Halas Courage Award. Please welcome one of the greatest defensive linemen to ever play, the pride of Jacksonville, the Danimal, Dan Hampton.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. How are you? You doing well? Hey, was that a 3-touchdown victory by the Razorbacks over the weekend? Holy cow, where's that been, huh? Oh, it's so great to be back in Little Rock. Thank you so much for having me here. David, I can't tell you, I'm humbled by the fact that you started this award. Mike Erie, you and Carlton Associates, thank you so much for all you have done. Folks, look, like I said, I was very lucky in a lot of ways, but, I never thought that I'd have an award named after me. This guy right over here, Jimmy Walker, I got to tell you, we were such great friends, and we had so much fun at Arkansas. And today, normally I kind of do a little, song and dance, 20, 30-minute little presentation. But today I'm just going to kind of tell you a potpourri of different things that have kind of come to my mind over the last couple of weeks, thinking about coming back and talking to you, the Razorback fans, the greatest fans in all the land. And, when Jimmy and I went to Arkansas, let me just get started by saying this. Abraham Lincoln had a great saying. He said, if you want what you've never had, you have to do what you've never done. And when Jimmy and I went to Arkansas, I can't tell you, we were kids. We were 18-year-old kids, and we didn't really realize that what we were doing at the time would be kind of, legendary. And people would talk about it and remember it for years and years and years to come. If we did, we'd have probably tried harder, wouldn't we? Right? But I was just up, with the lottery folks in Fayetteville, and I got a chance to meet Coach Morris and Hunter Yurachek, the new AD. And we were kind of kicking it around, and I said, think about this. I said, in 1975, the Razorbacks had not been particularly good. I don't think they'd been to a bowl game in a number of years. And we had basically it was a large Arkansas recruiting class. It was, Dale White and Larry Jackson and William Hampton and Brad Shapp and all these guys that would go on to become building blocks, very important players for the Razorbacks over the next 3-4 years. And quite honestly, I didn't start playing football until I was in 11th grade. And I had fallen out of a tree when I was a kid, and I was in a wheelchair for a long time. And then our dad, my brother and I, obviously, our dad died. And then, it was kind of like a free-for-all. We didn't know what to do and didn't have a whole lot of guidance. But how lucky was I that a guy by the name of Bill Reed, who passed away a year ago, a legendary Arkansas high school coach, took the time to basically tell this 6'6", scrawny, skinny kid playing a saxophone at halftime in the football games, get your ass out of the band and come out here and play football. And he did. He almost, kind of shamed me. And he said, hey. And he goes, I heard about you. You broke the tibia and fibia. Okay, you got a plate in your heel. I got it. He goes, but you know what? The good Lord it has an amazing healing powers. And you never will know unless you try. And if you never try, then you live your whole life saying, well, I wish I would have. I wish I would have, could have. Well, I started playing. And by the time I was a senior, I had obviously, been noticed. And the Razorbacks were recruiting me. And back then they gave 30 scholarships. Remember that, Jimmy? 30 scholarships. I think I was number 29 and Jimmy was number 30. In fact, we go to the high school all-star game. I'm an offensive tackle. And we go, and Sam Goodwin, the great coach from Parkview, basically moved me to guard and said, look, we got to block Dale White. He's the best player on the other team. We block him, we'll be successful. So they moved me to guard, and I had a really good night, and I was all excited. My brother, I didn't have a car, and he drove me to Fayetteville the next day. And all the way up there, I said, well, I hope those guys saw the game, and, Anyway, I didn't realize it at the time, but Jimmy Walker did not have a scholarship offer from the Razorbacks. And yet he was the MVP of the game. And guess what? They woke up and said, we better get this kid and give him a scholarship. So here we go to Fayetteville. My brother's driving me. I don't know how you got there. I didn't know you yet. But we get there, and I'm shy, kind of introverted, had glasses, long hair. I played in a rock band. Anyway. I was the last one to get my helmet and my shoulder pads and all that. And I get up there and the guy's closing the gate and I go, wait, whoa. Me, I haven't got my stuff. He goes, I'm done. My list is full. And I said, wait a minute, Dan Hempton, offensive tackle. And he goes, nope. And I'm thinking, my brother's already driving back home. How am I going to get a? I thought they'd rescinded the scholarship. And he said, hold on. And he goes back and he says, you're at the defensive end. So I go down to the defensive window, and sure enough, Jimmy Johnson had seen me playing that game, and he said, this kid can play defense. Now, think about that. Now, I don't know how you feel about Jimmy Johnson, but I think he's an amazing coach. Let me ask you this question, and that's one of the sources of pride that I have all across this nation. Everybody talks about, Alabama, Penn State, USC. There's 3 men on the planet Earth that have won a Super Bowl and a national championship. Do you know who those 3 men are? Pete Carroll, who was our graduate offensive assistant. Now think about that. Think about that. 3 men, all 3 of them have deep ties to Arkansas. But Jimmy Johnson, he was a smart guy. Anyway, I want to say another thing about Jimmy here in a second, but let me just say this. He moved me to defense, and I never, not one play in practice. I found out years later, I do a television show in Chicago called Pro Football Weekly. Jay Amberg never misses it. He tapes it. If you want to watch it, go over to his house. Anyway, comes on every week. Anyway, at the end of the day, well, it's Dave Wannstedt, 2-time NFL coach, coached with Jimmy at Miami and then, of course, in Dallas. Then he was the head coach of the Bears, head coach of the Miami Dolphins. And the Pro Football Weekly editor, Hub Arkus, who's basically a walking encyclopedia of all things NFL. Anyway, each and every week we all get in the green room, we tell stories, blah, 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 and he tells a story that one of my teammates, a guy by the name of Jimbo Covert, like you said, I was the 4th guy taken in the draft. Well, Jimbo Covert was the number 7 pick in the first round. The smartest thing that fool Jim McMahon ever said was about Jimbo Covert. We had 2 draft picks in 1983, number 7 pick and number 11 pick. And at 7, we picked Jimbo Covert, an offensive tackle, who was great. If he had played another year or 2, I think he would be in the Hall of Fame. He took care of Lawrence Taylor every time we played him. I'm telling you, nobody else could. He did. And at the 11th pick, we picked Willie Gault from Tennessee, the fast world-class sprinter, as a receiver. And they asked Jim McMahon, which one of these picks are you most excited about? And, to his credit, he goes, well, I'm liking the fact I got me a speed receiver, but this other guy, he's going to make sure I'm standing up long enough to throw it to him, right? So at least he figured that much of the football equation out. But anyway, Jimbo Covert was the number 1 recruit on the Eastern Seaboard when he was coming out of high school. And he went to Pittsburgh, and that was when Jimmy wanted to be the coach, and Frank didn't want him to, and he gave the job to Lou Holtz, and Jimmy went to Pittsburgh. So he's got the #1 recruit in the land, the defensive tackle, Jimbo Covert, to work with. Wanstead said he came in after the first day, 2 days, came in after the first day and told Johnny Majors, put him at offense. He can't play defense. Think about that. Just 1 day of practice, and everybody goes, wait a minute. He's the player of the year, in the eastern seaboard of the United States. What do you mean he can't play? He said he can't play defense, put him on offense. Not only did he become an All-American, he should be in the Hall of Fame. But Jimmy knew talent, and he would basically work with us day after day, and it was monotonous. It was just a lot of hard work, grinding. But the things he taught me, back when I was 18 years old, 19, they kept me in the league at the end after my 15th knee operation, my 16th. I didn't have the skills that I once had, but I never made a bad step because I was so fundamentally sound. I was just talking to Bruce James over here, and he's talking about how the Razorback defense keeps losing contain. You'd think sooner or later people kind of figure out, hey, if they're going to run wide, we better get somebody out there, contain it, right? You'd be shocked. But let me tell you about Jimmy before I move on here. I love Jimmy in so many ways. Frank Broyles, after we played a game, and it was kind of like a badge of honor. We used to have these little hog stickers. Remember them, Jimmy? Anyway, they'd make a list. Okay, let's see here. Jim Howard, you get 2.5 hogs. And so, and you'd get the stickers and put them on your helmet. And, man, you felt like a big shot. You had all them stickers back there. It means you're out there making plays, right? But Jimmy would be sitting right behind me, and he could mock Frank Broyles. I mean, first we got Jim Howard, 2 hogs. And I would be about to throw up laughing so hard, trying not to, it's Frank Broyles, he's like on the dollar bill. We can't laugh. And Jimmy was behind me, making me laugh. But Jimmy, this is a great tribute to you. Let me just tell you this. Last November, I went down to Florida with Matt Suey, and we were doing a little golf trip, blah, blah, blah. And as we get out of the car at the golf shop, Matt Suey goes, hey, sometimes Bill Parcells, is here, and he's out on the range hitting balls, and he's a member. And I love Bill Parcells. He beat me, in the 86, in the 19, my last game of my career, miserable, cold, wicked day in, New Jersey at the Meadowlands. They beat us, and they went on and won the Super Bowl that year. But Bill Parcells, great coach, great man. But anyway, there he is. He's out there on the practice field. And I go out there, and he goes, Danny, hey. So we start talking. And how many people, now think about this. Bill Parcells, he coached not only the Giants, he coached the New England Patriots, he coached the Dallas Cowboys. How many damn people did he coach in his life? Now think about this. So we sit down and we start talking, and you know what one of his first questions was? How's Jimmy Walker? And I'm thinking, wait a minute, how does he know Jimmy Walker? Jimmy played in the Canadian League for a long time, great player. But he wanted to talk about Jimmy Walker. He said, I'll never forget, I think he was down at Texas Tech, when Lou Holtz was here, and they came up to see about our defense. In 1978, remember that was the year we beat Oklahoma and we got after everybody. In fact, I think we held Earl Campbell to about, 60 yards? 2 years later in the pros, he ran for 230 against the Chicago Bears. Yeah. Anyway, after the game, I told Buddy Ryan, I said, we didn't do so good, did he? He goes, nope. And he goes, what'd you guys do in college? I said, we had a bunch of guys flying around. I think he got about 60 yards. Buddy goes, we should have signed them for this game because he killed us. But Jimmy Walker was such a great player, great teammate, great person. Bill Parcells, 40 years later now, that's all he wanted to talk about was Jimmy Walker. Jimmy and I both made All-American on the same defense at 3 positions. 2 of them made All-American. That's pretty damn good. Give Jimmy Walker a great round of applause. Now in the Arkansas Sports Hall of Fame. Okay, let's talk about Bruce James' ring. I got to tell you, similar story. The great Walter Payton. This November 1st will be 20 years since his passing. A week ago, 2 weeks ago tomorrow, I was asked by the Chicago Bear organization to speak on behalf of the football team at the dedication of the George Halas Trophy and the Walter Payton Trophy that was to be unveiled before the opening game back on September 5th. And Matt Suey, the fullback that blocked for him for 8 or 9 years, I called him. I said, why are they asking me? I mean, you were like Walter's dearest friend. And Matt's kind of a private guy, and he goes, no. He goes, you played 9 years with him, and Wally loved you, and, he goes, you do it. So I was honored and flattered to be the one that was asked to say something at that presentation. Before we went out, there was to be 5 people that were going to make comments that day. It was at Soldier Field. They had a lot of media there. And the first one is Virginia Mccaskey. Virginia Mccaskey is 96 years old. Boy, she's still vivid, lucid, sharp. She'll tell you, a funny little line, and she's doing great. But that was George Halas's daughter. He had a son. His name was Muggsy. My rookie year, the last game of the year, we're getting ready to play the St. Louis Cardinals, and we had like some 1 in a million shot to get in the playoffs. We had to score like 50 points or something like that, which we never could or did. But if we did and we won the game, we had a chance to make the playoffs. And I come down to breakfast. It was 7 o'clock in the morning, and everybody's acting real weird. And I go, what's going on? And Doug Plank goes, Muggsy died. And I said, what? He passed away at age 64 upstairs in his room during the night. Anyway, everybody, we didn't know what to say, what to do, whatever. So we went on to the stadium. We got dressed. We went out and beat St. Louis 61-7, made the playoffs. How about that, huh? But that was like one of the first big interactions with the Halas family when they had the funeral, and we got to see everyone and know them. Anyway, at the end of the day, Walter and I played 9 years together. I used to go duck hunting with him on the Illinois River down by Peoria. I loved him. He had his wife, Connie, and his son, Jarrett, and daughter, Brittany, who are now television personalities in Chicago. And they spoke about, what Walter meant to them in their lives. And then I spoke for a minute, and then it was Coach Ditka. And it was great to see Coach Ditka. Back in the spring, Coach Ditka had this little heart issue, and everybody was all worried. We're panicked, thinking, oh, no, he's going to be 80. And anyway, finally, about a week later, somebody said he's out of the hospital. So I called him, and I said, hey, Coach, it's Hempton. How are you doing? He goes, hey, Dan, it's great to hear from you. And I said, hey, Coach, I just want you to know we're thinking of you, and Mongo and I are praying for you. And he goes, man, that's great to hear. I can use the prayers, and Mongo can use the practice. But I was outside talking with the guys on the radio, and they said, what was it like playing for Iron Mike? It was unlike anything else. Lou Holtz was the motivating force. Jimmy Johnson was such a tactician. And Jim, you don't realize this. This is way before iPhones and cell phones. And back when they had the 8mm film, we would play the first 7 minutes of a game in Fayetteville, and Jimmy had some buddy of his videotape, movie, like you saw your grandparents have, doing. And then he had it timed up. After 7 minutes, he'd have to run down the stands, get in his car, go to the lab, get it developed, and then he'd make it back by halftime. And Jimmy would say, all right, go to the bathroom, get you some drink, get back in here. We would watch about 2 or 3, 4 minutes of the first half. Think about it. They didn't even do this with videotaping the pros, But Jimmy was doing this in 1975. He was amazing. But at the end of the day, being asked to unveil those statues was really such an honor. And I remember going up to Virginia Mccaskey and telling her, you know, I was with Matt Suey last fall, and he was telling me a story. Now, when I was drafted, I think George was 82, and he passed away in 1983, Halloween night. And that Halloween night, Walter had gotten us a suite at the top of the Arlington Park Hilton. If you ever go to the Arlington Park racetrack, that's the Hilton, and we were up on the top floor. Nice bar, you know, a DJ, we're all having a great time. It's Monday Night Football, we're watching it, and all of a sudden, across the bottom of the screen, George Papa Bear Hallis dies tonight. It was almost like a Hollywood movie. It's like the lights came on, they shut everything off. We all gathered up our coats. We walked out single file. We went home. And I'll never forget the look on Dick's face the next day as we all had the resolve that we wanted to fulfill his promise that we would win a Super Bowl. Well, that was 1983. It was a couple more years, but we had started getting the players in place. We had Walter, we had Singletary, McMichael, we had Dent, we had Wilbur. We had these guys, and we were starting to build what would become what was recently proclaimed the greatest NFL team of all time, the first 100 years, the 85 Bears. But it all started because George Hallis drafted a guy named Walter Payton in 1975 out of a little college over in Mississippi. You know, that team had such a great flavor of the South. You know, Singletary's from Texas, Mongo's from Texas, Richards from Atlanta, Walter from Mississippi. But at the end of the day, we wanted to be great. And it reminded me that when we were freshmen, Jimmy, and nobody would ever realize this, but like I said, if they were giving out scholarships, I was like 29 and he was 30. It was like, if we don't show up, they're not going to worry about it, you know. We were projects, we really were. And yet we became, you know, All-Americans for a lot of reasons. We had great coaches, we had a great a facility, we had great teammates, we had all this stuff. But we wanted to be special for a lot of reasons, but to play for you, the great people of Arkansas, and give you a great source of pride. Now it's been 40 years since we won the Orange Bowl. And you know what? When I say I'm from Arkansas, and oh, you played for the Razorbacks. Oh, they remember the Orange Bowl. It's a great touchstone moment in their life, and they, you know, it gave them something that they will carry with them the rest of time. You know, and when I got to Chicago, I found a lot of guys that wanted to do the same thing, and we were able to build an amazing football team. But if you was to come up, and Wally Hall's over here, and who was to say that when you walked in that dorm, and you seen Jimmy Walker, and you seen me, and a few of these other guys, you would say, this group of freshmen are going to play and win the Cotton Bowl. They're going to play and win the Orange Bowl. They're going to go to the Fiesta Bowl, and they're going to go to the Sugar Bowl. Would you have believed it? Think about it. Would you take that today? Would you take it today? Citrus Bowl's looking kind of nice, isn't it? I'm just saying. You know why? Because we wanted to achieve something special. And it was a great group. It really was. And I tried to explain that to Hunter Yurachek. You know, he's back from, he's a basketball player in the Carolinas, and then was in Houston. And I said, you're going to find out. Arkansas is different. It's special in a lot of ways. So this past week, and I don't want to go too long. I know you got this. But this past week, while you're hanging out with Bobby Petrino, I'm hanging out with Toby Keith, okay? That's a pretty good trade. Anyway, we were talking, and I didn't realize, see, I was born in Midwest City, Oklahoma, and Toby is from right south of there, down by Moore. And anyway, we became friends and playing his golf tournament, and he was in Chicago for a big gig, and my band was opening for his band that night, and afterwards we were talking, and when he was in, I think, 4th, 5th, 6th grade, his parents weren't getting along or whatever. They sent him to live with Grandma, who owned a tavern in Fort Smith. And he became a Razorback fan. And so I think Toby's 58, something like that. So he's 4 or 5 years behind me. So he was like, in junior high or high school when, the Razorbacks beat Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl. And he goes, all my friends, they were all OU. And he actually walked on at OU and, it didn't work out. But he said, I was a Razorback fan. I loved the Hogs. See, you have something special. Now, how do you convince these young players, these young men, to come here, first of all, because you go to Alabama, who cares? You just get beat by Clemson every year, right? Okay. Well, you go to Alabama, you're just another one in a long line. You come here, you can be special. You could be something extraordinary. But then when you get them here, you got to sell them on what it means to be a Razorback. Now, I brought up that story about Walter Payton. And trust me, folks, I played with a lot of great players, great players, but nobody was like him. He was exemplary in all walks. But Walter, daughter Brittany, brought his Super Bowl ring on a little Friday night after a football game party in the basement. They brought it down there, and she was showing everybody the Super Bowl ring. And the next morning, Walter goes, where's my ring? And Brittany goes, well, I thought somebody brought it back up. And next thing you know, it's gone. Somebody stole it. Anyway, Walter, he was freaked out. And he offered a reward. And anyway, then, people forget about it. And then the next thing you know, he becomes ill, and then Walter passes away. And then I hear about 2 years later a story. Evidently, Connie had given the furniture in the basement a few years after Walter passed away to a little fraternity house down in Purdue, which is 100 miles south of Chicago. And they had that couch. God knows what's going on the couch, but after a couple of years, they were going to redecorate, and they take the couch out, and a couple of these, frat guys throw it up on the curb, and they hear a clink, clink, clink. And they go out on the street, and there's Walter Payton's ring. It had fallen down on the couch cushions. Now think about that. Walter, this ring right here is the Hall of Fame ring. I don't hardly wear it very often. I only wear it when I come, and people like to see these things. And so it's special for a lot of reasons, but a lot of times it's people, hey, I've never seen one. Well, Walter, he cherished this ring, and I'll tell you why. 3 people designed it. Mike Mccaskey, who would have trouble designing a cake. Mike Ditka, who had a bunch of rings with the Cowboys. Remember, he was a player and a coach that won a Super Bowl. So, I don't want to say it wasn't that big a deal to him, and I'm sure it was. He was the head coach. But Walter was the guy that he loved this ring, and he was proud of it. And for him to lose it, it was devastating. And we feel bad for Bruce James, and if you hear anything or know anything, like I said, that would be fantastic if we could get, someone to kind of figure out what happened to it, because we don't think somebody, swallowed it. We know that. It's way too big for that. But before we get to this next little portion where it's kind of like, stump the defensive lineman, he's going to show me some pictures. I just want to just reiterate that one thing. This past year, we had a big hoopla and celebration because it was the coronation of the 100 years of pro football. That George Halas actually started. He went to Decatur, Illinois, 100 years ago, had a 1-year gig with a company down in Decatur that if he would play 1 year in Decatur, they would let him go to Chicago, and they became the Chicago Bears. But at the end of the day, how many lives did George Halas change by his decision to not only start the team, but he was the owner, the founder, the player, and a guy that started the NFL. Just like how many lives did people like Frank Broyles and Bill Reed and Lou Holtz, how many lives did they change? So if you have young people that are involved in athletics, whether it's, my daughter played college volleyball, and you know what? People helped her and mentored her all along the way. But if you coach or if you have kids that want to be involved, get them involved. And let me just say this about the CTE thing. You know, everybody's been going crazy about, oh, well, the CTE thing, football's bad. No, it's not. I feel bad for those guys that played a long time ago. Those helmets were not safe. But since I started playing in the 70s, they're fine. I've never been knocked out. I've never had a concussion. Doug Plank, who was knocked out like twice a game, I called him last week, and he remembered a joke he told me in the huddle on a Monday Night Football game. So, I mean, I don't understand. It's a rhyme or reason thing. I don't know. But if you got kids who want to play the great game of football, encourage them. Tell them, hey, like I said, I'll be 62 in 3 days. I got 2 new knees. I don't know if I can break 100 on the golf course, but I plan on trying as soon as we get out of here today. So what do you got for me, David?
I'll give it Dan Hampton, everybody. I got one question. We'll wrap it up. So you covered most of the folks that I was gonna throw at you. I've got one question. If you guys were listening to what Dan had to say, think about this. You played under Jimmy Johnson, Lou Holtz, Frank Brules, of course, Monty Kiffin, Ditka, Buddy Ryan. So we have him on the buzz every Friday, thanks to Creighton Electric. I want to give them a plug.
It's amazing I accomplished anything with that lineup.
But think about this. So, Dan, what is the secret? What is the secret ingredient in those coaches that made them great? And what was the ingredient on that team, that defense? You played on 2 of the greatest defenses, college and pro. What was the ingredient that made all those folks in those teams?
You don't see them tackling each other, do you? So if you decide to play football, you better make your mind up that you're going to have to play it the right way. And it requires a certain amount of discipline, fundamentals, effort. You know, we played, and my kid, he's 16, and he doesn't get it yet, and he's kind of, going through the motions. And anyway, and I told him, I said, you don't get it. Monty Kiffin would bring, and Holtz, they were both, co-conspirators trying to kill us. That's a Burlingame called me about 10 years ago. He said, I just figured it out. They were trying to kill us. That's what they were doing. We would do 100 up downs before we started stretching. Go out there and do 20. See if you can do. We would do 100 up downs before we started stretching. We'd practice for 2 hours. Then we would run gassers, and then we'd run 10 stadiums. And back then, hey, we're proud. The stadium was big, and we paid the price for it all the way to the top and back every day 10 times. But, we gave great effort. We swarmed. We wanted to be great. We grew up listening to stories about how great the Hogs were and the 63 championship and, in 69. And let me leave you with this one story. So David, I think his favorite story, and I don't know, you may have heard this, I may have told this, but in '84, we set the NFL record for quarterback sacks. Now, the quarterback sacks is basically the unofficial fear factor in football. You don't want your team to get rated by some team that can rush the passer. So we were, bigger than life, getting after people, hurting them. 1984, 72 sacks. The lead team in the league had like 50 last year. We had 72. The next year in the Super Bowl, we had 68. I mean, but we're playing Minnesota, and we're killing them. And Tommy Kramer was their quarterback who played at Rice, and we played against him in the Southwest Conference. Anyway, they didn't want to get him hurt, so they get him out. And who do they put out there? Archie Manning. He's about 40 years old at the time. Anyway, all this goes on while you're in the game. You don't think about it. So anyway, we're rushing the pass. We have like 8 or 9 sacks. And it's fourth quarter, and they're just trying to run the clock out. And next thing you know, we're running a double tackle stunt where we get upfield. I'm playing defensive end, and I come underneath, and I'm coming around 100 miles an hour, about that high. When I come around, I see Archie had seen the ocean's part. He's like, yeah, I can run, and he takes off. I come around, I hit him right in the face, and I could tell it was bad. The helmet blew up, blood goes everywhere. I'm looking on the ground, and he's knocked out. And I feel bad, but then I really start thinking about it, and I go, in 1969, my dad was in a pool with IBM, the company he worked for, and we won our first color TV on a Sugar Bowl pool when the Razorbacks played Ole Miss. Remember, they beat us 16-2. Is that correct? What? No, Archie Manning. We played Archie, right? Yeah, well, I remember the Razorbacks. Anyway, the game that Archie beat the Razorbacks, my dad won a pool. I didn't know how that worked. I was a kid. Anyway, we got our first color TV. Now I'm looking down, and there's Archie. He's bleeding. And I go, hell, I killed Archie, and he got us our TV. And I felt really bad for just a minute. But anyway, so, they carry him off and bring somebody else and the game's over. Okay. Now, 20 years go by. I'm playing in the Shriners Classic at St. Jude over in Memphis in the Wednesday Pro-Am. Anyway, I'm not playing so well, but I'm getting out of the golf cart, and I notice there's this big, tall, geeky-looking dude getting out of a golf cart over there. And I recognize him. It's Payton Manning. Anyway, so I'm walking to the green, and he's looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and he goes, "Hey, I know you. You're the one that broke my daddy's nose." Guilty. All right, what do you got?
Ladies and gentlemen, that's it. Dan Hampton, everybody. Give it up for the great one, Dan Hampton. We'll see you next week. Hunter Yurchek. Those who want to get pictures made with Dan, VIP members and sponsors first. And then, if you want to come up here. Yeah, Rich. Good job, buddy. I got it. He'll direct you.
Hang on.
His mom wants the family. Get in there.
He's family too.
Yeah.
PJ, you want to get up here? You wait over there. Wait, you want to get up here? Wait, hold on. All right, coach is up next. Coaches, real quick.